What's up, it's your boy Jux. Today, I'm super excited because we're finally getting started on what this whole channel is supposed to be about. We are building a hoverbike. But first, I want to chat briefly about the channel. So I'm still pretty new to YouTube, and the biggest thing I've learned is that there's a lot that goes into it. Where do I put the camera? Where do I put the lights? Do I need an expensive microphone? How do I organize a video? Yada yada yada. This project is a great example. I didn't even decide I wanted to make this into a video until I was halfway through building it. As a result, the early footage is pretty rough, so I appreciate your patience while I figure out how to increase the quality. That being said, if you've got audio-video skills and you notice something funky going on, please drop tips in the comments. One thing I've learned as a professional creative is to think of feedback as a gift. If you can put your ego to the side and focus on the learning, it only helps you do better work. So thank you all for your feedback. I deeply appreciate you coming on this journey with me, and I'm so excited to see what we build together. All right, enough of all that. Let's get into it. I like to start with pieces that inspire me. So for the frame of the bike, I'm using a discarded Nerf bow and arrow handle. The trigger to a spray bottle makes for a perfect seat. I've added brackets to the front as attachment points for the cowling, so let's get started on establishing that geometry. We'll crack open this big egg, draw a line down the center, and split it in half. That's looking pretty good, but it's a little too big, so we'll score, snap, and saw off the excess until we've got a more manageable size. I dig that shape, so using the opposite side of the egg, we'll repeat the process. Eyeball it, mark it, score it, snap it. This time we'll clean up the edges to make them nice and straight. Next up is the jet engine. The guts of a GLP-1 injector hold many amazing things. Not this one though, he sucks. I want these parts to line up perfectly in here, but since the jet engine is currently hollow, we'll need a way to secure them. We'll use this big long toothpick, drill a hole in each piece, and get them lined up. I added a few greeblies and structure for the gas tank off camera, because again, new to YouTube, and fleshed out that gas tank with more pieces of big egg. My nephew recently gifted me his 3D printer a whole year ago, so I printed a few fan blades to avoid having to build them from scratch. They totally passed the spin test. I'll drop a link to the STL so you can print your own. I don't need mine to spin, however, so we're going to super glue it in place. Next, we'll trim the rim of the engine, and using a comically oversized compass, we'll check our work.
Nice!
We need a nose cone for the fan, so let's bust out the project parts. This thing will work. Let's trim and sand it. This guy right here is sticking out, so we'll give him a snip. And glue the nose cone into place. I made the front cowling from the cap of a can of spray paint. It fits perfectly, so let's get it glued. I use a plastic takeout container for my baking soda. It's got a wide surface area and makes it easy to catch the excess when tapping and brushing models. It also spins well. As you can see, the guts of the engine are pretty wobbly, so we'll add some stability with toothpicks. I'll pop a quick hole in the side with my pin vise, squeeze in the toothpick, and glue it into place. Yeah, that's looking way more better. We'll trim off the toothpicks because we're done with them. I still haven't quite figured out which direction I want the cowling to go, so I'm noodling around on that a bit to check the composition. Building the gauge cluster was a challenging process, one I regret not filming. I'll try to be better about that next time. I just decided I don't like this light. So let's get rid of it, cut it in half, and chop off the nub. We'll sand it down to get a nice smooth surface and reorient the light in a way that makes more sense. The frame has some excess material that I'll need to get rid of before I can mount the light. With that out of the way, let's get it glued. We got a big old crack in the back, so let's close it up with super glue. Add a little baking soda, brush off the excess, clean it up with the X-Acto, sand it nice and smooth. Government regulation says this is a good spot for a license plate, so let's make it happen. We'll make it using the old score and snap, and dude, listen to this snap. Juicy! We'll get it cleaned up and glued into place. Up on the gauge cluster, we've got some sharp edges, so let's snip those off and sand them smooth. I found this milliput exploring a nearby sarcophagus. The part that's supposed to be gray looks about as crusty as the guy who was living in it. I think it'll still work if I cut the crust off, so let's get to work on this forbidden sausage. That should be more than enough, so I'll cut off an equal sized chunk of the second part and knead them together. Once it's nice and smooth, I'll rip off a chunk and start filling the cracks. I'll cover the whole model, filling gaps big and small. Use a little bit of water to make it easier to smooth out. I'll keep filling the gaps and smoothing until I'm satisfied. And do a little cleanup before leaving it to dry. I'll leave it for about an hour or so before coming back to fine tune the edges. Milliput's great because it molds like clay, but it's easy to sand. I've still got mad gaps in here though, so I'll try using kitchen caulk to fill in the rest. This stuff is old as dirt too, so let's snip the tip and give it some room to breathe. I'm finding that it's way looser than milliput and doesn't work very well for filling large gaps. The wet fingers technique works great for smoothing though, because it leaves a nice glossy finish, but now we gotta wait again. While we're waiting, I'll spend entirely too much time over-engineering the structure for some foot pegs. They stick out way too far, and I'm pretty sure I can do better using the sprues from a Gundam kit.
Man, let me at him.
The corners of this guy should work well, so let's snip them off. We'll clean them up a bit, sand the nubs, and test fit them into the frame. We'll need some foot pegs for the foot legs, so I'll bust out the bit box and see what I can find. Oh look, it's our favorite friend, Mr. Fork. The tines of this fork look foot peggish to me, so let's chop them off. The size looks pretty good, but I want to cut a notch in the base to increase the surface area for proper adhesion. I'm seeing a whole lot of daylight in there, so let's sand it down for a better fit. Yeah, that's way better. I'll glue it in place and hit it generously with the baking soda to make sure it sticks. With those finished, it's almost time for primer. I'll scrape away any excess crusties, sharpen up the cracks and crevices, and brush away the dust. To make them easier to handle while painting, I'll glue toothpicks to the smaller pieces and stick them in a box to have a place to put them. Next, we'll grab our primer, put on the ugliest shoes in the universe,
What the hell?
and head outside to get these bad boys primed. So there you go. We wrapped up the build portion of the project. We got it all primed and ready for paint. Part 2 is going to be all about the painting and detailing process. If you want to have a say in what color we paint this thing, look down in the description for a link to a poll and be sure to vote. I'm super excited to see where this thing goes and to find out what color we're going to paint it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for part 2. I love you very much. Peace!